What happens when a soldier quietly fights back and grounds an entire flight with just one phone call? The gate at Dallas Love Field buzzed with the low hum of tired travelers, all itching to get somewhere else. Families juggled sticky toddlers, business suits tapped at laptops, and overhead, a monotone voice announced flight delays with the energy of a dying battery. But none of that mattered to Staff Sergeant Tiana Brooks. Today was different. Today, she was going home. Tiana adjusted the strap of her heavy duffel bag and pulled her cap lower over her braids. Her body ached from the 14-hour flight she'd already survived, muscles tight from too many months sleeping on cots and concrete. She was bone-tired, not the kind a nap could fix, but her heart thudded with a quiet excitement. She moved with purpose toward the final boarding call for Flight 827 to Phoenix, row 22A, window seat. She just needed to sit down and breathe. The line moved slow. She shuffled forward, flashing a polite smile at an elderly couple fumbling with their tickets. When she finally stepped into the plane, the cool blast of recycled air hit her face. For a split second, it felt like freedom. Tiana spotted her row about halfway back. The aisle was clogged with passengers stuffing their bags into the overhead bins. She waited patiently, shifting from one foot to the other, until there was a gap big enough for her to squeeze through. She stepped forward and reached up to stow her duffel. Heavy, bulky, stubborn. The bag caught against the lip of the bin, and she gave it an extra shove. That's when it happened. A sharp nudge against her back, firm and uninvited, made her stumble slightly. "Can you please hurry up?" a voice snapped. Tiana blinked, stunned for half a second. She turned her head just enough to see the flight attendant, a woman with neatly pinned blonde hair and a tight frown, brushing past her without a second glance. Her name tag read Mallory Keene. The moment didn't scream disaster. It wasn't loud. No one screamed. But it was the way it happened. Like Tiana wasn't even human, just an obstacle in the way. The passengers around her shifted awkwardly. A man in a brown leather jacket raised his eyebrows. A woman 2 rows up actually gasped under her breath. Tiana steadied herself, sliding her duffel fully into the overhead bin. She took her seat without a word, breathing slow and deep. Her hands, calloused from years of training and combat, rested calmly on her lap. But inside, a battle raged. Not of rage, of restraint. She could hear Mallory barking orders up the aisle. "Let's go, people! We're already behind schedule!" Tiana closed her eyes for a moment. She hadn't fought in desert storms, hadn't stood guard through bitter nights, just to come home and be treated like she didn't exist. She opened her eyes, pulled out her phone, and thumbed through her contacts until she found the right name. Major Ellery Vance, direct line for deployed personnel issues. He'd said once, "If you ever have a problem in public while in uniform, you call me." No questions asked. Tiana hesitated only a second, then she hit call. But as the phone rang quietly against her ear, the real storm hadn't even started yet. "Yeah, Major Vance?" "It's Brooks," Tiana said quietly, turning her head toward the window to keep her voice low. "We've got a situation." On the other end, his voice was calm but firm. "Tell me everything." Tiana spoke quickly, giving just the facts. No dramatics, no anger, just the truth. Meanwhile, Mallory Keene stalked back down the aisle, her arms folded, throwing quick glances at the passengers like they were naughty children in need of scolding. The man in the leather jacket 2 rows up leaned back to catch Tiana's eye. He gave her a small, silent nod, like he was saying, "Yeah, I saw that too." Tiana ended the call after a quick, "Thank you, sir," and slid the phone into her pocket. She wasn't here to start something. She was here to finish it the right way. Mallory wasn't done, though. As Tiana buckled her seatbelt, Mallory stopped beside her row, speaking louder now so everyone could hear. "Next time," she said coldly, "maybe don't block the whole aisle. Some of us have a job to do." The words hit harder than the shove. It wasn't just impatience. It was disrespect, plain and simple. And Tiana wasn't the only one who noticed. An older woman with silver hair across the aisle frowned and muttered, "That's no way to talk to anyone." Tiana stayed seated, voice calm but strong. "I asked you not to touch me. That wasn't a suggestion." Mallory's lips twitched like she wanted to say something worse, but the sound of the cockpit door cracking open shut her up. The captain, a stocky man in his 50s with thinning hair and sharp eyes, stepped out, speaking into a handheld radio clipped to his vest. Tiana caught one phrase loud and clear. We're going to need to delay departure. We have a report involving a service member on board." Mallory froze for a heartbeat, her face draining just a little color. Passengers started whispering, heads turned. Someone up front stood halfway out of their seat trying to hear better. Tiana stayed perfectly still. She wasn't about to give Mallory the satisfaction of losing her cool. Mallory gave a tight, fake laugh and tried to cover. "Oh, it's just a little misunderstanding," she said, waving her hand. The captain wasn't buying it. He stepped fully into the aisle and addressed the passengers over the loudspeaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be experiencing a short delay while we resolve an onboard personnel issue. We appreciate your patience." A few groans scattered through the cabin, but mostly there was an odd kind of charged silence, like everyone could feel something bigger was happening. Mallory shot Tiana a glare sharp enough to cut glass, then stormed toward the back of the plane, yanking out her phone. Tiana exhaled slowly, her eyes never leaving the window. The Arizona sun would be setting soon. She just wanted to get home. But she wasn't about to let herself, or anyone who wore a uniform, be treated like less. But what Tiana didn't know yet was that her quiet call had set off alarms bigger than anyone on that plane could imagine. 15 minutes. That's how long they sat there, trapped in a growing silence. No engines humming, no tray tables clanking, just rows of restless passengers shifting in their seats and murmuring under their breath. Tiana didn't move. She watched the tarmac through the tiny oval window, counting the luggage carts as they rumbled past. It wasn't nerves that kept her still. It was the weight of experience, knowing that sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought on battlefields. Sometimes they happen in places where nobody expects them. The overhead lights flickered once. The intercom crackled to life again. "Due to an onboard personnel matter," the captain said, voice firm but apologetic, "we are temporarily grounding the aircraft. Airport security has been requested to assist." Mallory reappeared at the front of the cabin, her face flushed. She gripped the back of an empty seat, knuckles whitening. She scanned the passengers like she was searching for an ally, but found none. The woman with silver hair, sitting across from Tiana, raised her hand like she was in a classroom. "Excuse me," she called out. "Is this about that young woman you shoved earlier? Because I saw the whole thing." Mallory's mouth opened and closed, like a fish gulping for air. The leather jacket guy chimed in too, louder. "Same here. It wasn't right. She didn't do anything wrong." Tiana felt a small wave of gratitude, but she kept her face neutral. This wasn't a victory yet. A few rows up, a mother bouncing a crying toddler on her lap shook her head and muttered, "Whole thing's a disgrace." Mallory straightened, trying to salvage the crumbling situation. "It was a misunderstanding," she said again, voice tight. "She blocked the aisle, and we were behind schedule, so..." "So you pushed a soldier coming home from duty?" the silver-haired woman snapped back. "Nice welcome." Before Mallory could answer, a trio of uniformed airport security officers boarded the plane. 2 men, 1 woman, serious faces moving with purpose. They spoke briefly with the captain near the cockpit, then turned toward the cabin. The lead officer, a tall black man with a shaved head and a badge that read Sergeant Merritt, addressed the passengers. "Good afternoon, folks. We're conducting an investigation regarding an incident involving a member of the United States military. Please remain seated while we gather statements." You could feel the air tighten inside the cabin. Whispers darted from row to row like tiny bolts of electricity. Mallory's face was now a full shade paler. Her hands fidgeted with the hem of her blazer. The officers approached Tiana first. "Ma'am, would you be willing to step forward with us to speak privately?" Sergeant Merritt asked, voice low and respectful. Tiana nodded once. She rose smoothly from her seat, every movement precise, like the thousands of times she'd been drilled to stand tall no matter what. As she moved up the aisle, the small pockets of quiet support grew. A hand squeezed her shoulder gently as she passed. Someone whispered, "Thank you for your service." Tiana didn't need the praise, but it reminded her she wasn't invisible. Not today. She followed the officers toward the front of the plane, her boots thudding softly against the thin carpet. But as she prepared to tell her side of the story, Tiana knew one thing for sure. This was no longer just about her. It was about what was right. At the front of the plane, just outside the cockpit door, the officers led Tiana into a small space cleared near the galley. The hum of nervous passengers filled the cabin behind them, but up here, it felt strangely still. Sergeant Merritt kept his tone steady and professional. We've had a complaint involving inappropriate physical contact and verbal harassment. We just need to hear your account, ma'am. Tiana gave a short nod. Flight attendant pushed me while I was loading my bag. I asked her not to touch me. She responded by raising her voice and disrespecting me in front of the cabin. I stayed in my seat after that and made one phone call to report it. The woman officer beside him, Officer Delgado, according to her badge, scribbled quick notes on a small pad. Any threats made? Anything escalate beyond that? Tiana shook her head. No threats. I didn't engage her after the initial contact. Sergeant Merritt exchanged a quick look with his team. He gave a small nod, almost like a silent thank you for her calmness. Would you be willing to make a formal statement for airline management? He asked. Yes, sir, Tiana replied, no hesitation. Behind them, the captain approached, holding a tablet. His face was tight with frustration, but his voice was careful. Ms. Brooks, on behalf of the airline, I apologize for what happened. We take these matters very seriously. We've also been contacted by a Department of Defense liaison who's monitoring the situation. Mallory, standing about 6 feet away, stiffened at those words. Tiana gave a small, respectful nod, but didn't say anything yet. She wasn't here for empty apologies. She was here for accountability. The captain continued, We're currently grounding this aircraft until the situation is addressed. Management is on the way from the terminal. In the meantime, Sergeant Merritt and his team are taking statements from the passengers who witnessed the event. Tiana stepped aside while the officers moved through the rows, questioning those who had seen it. It didn't take long. Witness after witness confirmed what Tiana had said, and some added even more. The woman with silver hair spoke up clearly. She shoved that soldier like she was nothing, and when she was called out on it, she doubled down. The man in the leather jacket backed her up. Nobody deserves to be treated like that, especially someone who just got back from serving. Mallory fidgeted near the beverage cart, face tight, arms crossed. No one came to her defense. Airport management finally arrived. 2 men in navy jackets with laminated badges bouncing against their chests. They didn't look happy. One of them, a man with graying hair and a deep frown, pulled Mallory aside. Tiana couldn't hear the words exactly, but she caught phrases. Serious misconduct, pending suspension, and removed from duty. Mallory's face crumpled in slow motion. She tried to argue, but her voice cracked. Passengers watched in stiff silence as Mallory was escorted off the plane by security. No applause, no cheering, just a heavy, weighted quiet. The kind that happens when justice finally starts to balance the scale. The airline rep approached Tiana next. Ms. Brooks, we understand if you no longer feel comfortable flying with us today. We're prepared to arrange alternative transportation at no cost, or you're welcome to stay aboard once the situation is resolved. Tiana looked down the long stretch of the plane. She thought of home, of her mother's cooking waiting in a small kitchen in Tempe, of her nephew probably making a crayon sign that said, "Welcome home." "I'll stay," she said. "I didn't do anything wrong." The rep gave a respectful nod. "Understood." The captain spoke again to the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We will be preparing for takeoff shortly. Anyone needing to change their travel plans can see a gate agent after landing." A ripple of quiet relief passed through the plane. Tiana returned to her seat, the leather jacket guy leaning across the aisle to whisper, "Good on you." She smiled slightly, the first real smile she'd managed all day. But even as the engines finally whirred to life and the plane taxied toward the runway, Tiana knew this day wasn't just about a flight. It was about standing firm, even when it would have been easier to stay silent. The wheels lifted off the runway with a soft jolt. Tiana felt the familiar pressure of takeoff press her back into the seat, but for once, her heart stayed calm. No rattling nerves, no second guessing. She'd faced harder days than this, and she wasn't alone anymore. The passengers around her shifted, finally settling in for the ride. Some glanced her way with small, quiet smiles, the kind that spoke volumes without a word. Halfway through the flight, as the plane cut through the thick Texas sky, the woman with silver hair leaned over the aisle. "You handled yourself with a lot of grace back there," she said, her voice low but strong. "I just wanted you to know." Tiana gave a small nod. "Thank you, ma'am." "I've got a granddaughter in the Army," the woman added. "I'd hoped someone would stand up for her too." They shared a brief look. Not strangers anymore, not really. The drink service came and went. A new flight attendant, a young guy named Brandon, worked the cabin with an extra layer of kindness, almost as if trying to repair what had been broken earlier. When he reached Tiana's row, he paused. "Ma'am, your drinks and snacks are complimentary today. Airline's orders." Tiana smiled lightly. "Thanks, just water's fine." He nodded and disappeared up the aisle. It wasn't about free drinks or special treatment. Tiana didn't want that. She just wanted something simple. The respect every human being deserves, uniform or not. The man in the leather jacket, now flipping through a worn-out paperback, spoke without looking up. "Bet she's regretting that move now." Tiana chuckled softly under her breath. "Maybe, but it's not about her anymore." The leather jacket guy, his name was Charlie, he later introduced himself, grinned. "Maybe not, but seeing someone stand up without making a scene, that stuck with people." The plane hit a little turbulence, rattling the tray tables. Tiana didn't flinch. After what she'd survived overseas, a few bumps in the sky didn't faze her. She sat back, letting her mind wander. Not to the shove, not to Mallory's face when security came, but to her family waiting at the airport. Her mom with her endless hugs, her dad pretending not to cry, her nephew probably spilling juice all over his welcome home sign. Those were the faces that mattered. The captain's voice broke through the overhead speakers. "Folks, we're beginning our descent into Phoenix. Please ensure your seatbelts are fastened and all carry-on items are securely stowed." As the ground rose up to meet them, the sun was dipping low, painting the desert in gold and orange. Tiana pressed her forehead lightly against the window, soaking it all in. She didn't win a medal today. She didn't save a life. But she reminded everyone in that cabin, maybe even herself, that dignity isn't something you earn with stripes on your sleeve. It's something you're owed the moment you breathe your first breath. The wheels screeched softly as they touched down. A few scattered claps filled the cabin, half-hearted but genuine. Tiana unbuckled her belt, standing tall as the plane rolled toward the gate. Charlie gave her a fist bump as they shuffled toward the door. The silver-haired woman squeezed her hand one more time, whispering, "Welcome home, soldier." Tiana smiled, bigger this time, feeling it in her chest. As she stepped off the plane into the bright Arizona evening, she knew she wasn't carrying just her duffel bag anymore. She was carrying a quiet kind of pride, the kind no one could ever shove away. But before the night ended, Tiana still had one more moment of justice to experience, one she never even saw coming. The automatic doors at Sky Harbor International slid open with a hiss. The dry Phoenix air hit Tiana full in the face, hot, dusty, and real. And there they were. Her mother standing on tiptoes, waving like crazy. Her dad holding up his phone awkwardly trying to record. And right in the middle, her little nephew Noah, gripping a crooked sign made from construction paper, big red letters spelling out, "Welcome home, Aunt Tiana." Tiana dropped her duffel bag without thinking. She scooped Noah up in one arm and squeezed him tight while he laughed and shouted her name in her ear. Her mother pulled her into a bear hug, peppering kisses against her forehead. Her dad finally gave up on recording and hugged her too, just holding on. "You're home," her mother whispered. "Finally," Tiana said, blinking fast. For a few precious minutes, the rest of the world melted away. No flight attendants, no witnesses, no tense reports or official apologies, just family, just love. But life has a funny way of circling back when you least expect it. As they walked toward the parking garage, her phone buzzed. A new number. She hesitated, then answered. "Staff Sergeant Brooks?" a woman's voice said, crisp, professional. "Speaking," Tiana replied, shifting Noah on her hip. "This is Maria Lattimore, Regional Director for Passenger Relations. I just wanted to personally apologize for what happened today. We've reviewed statements from passengers and crew and action has been taken. The employee involved has been placed on immediate suspension pending termination." Tiana said nothing for a second. She didn't need vengeance. That wasn't what today had been about. Maria continued, her voice softening. "We're also implementing additional training for all cabin crew, effective immediately, including mandatory sessions on how to better respect and handle service members and all passengers." Tiana finally spoke. "That's a start." "It's long overdue," Maria said, "and I'm sorry it took something like this to push it forward." Tiana ended the call a few minutes later, sliding the phone into her pocket. She didn't need a ceremony or a press conference. She just needed people to be better, to do better. As they loaded into the car, her mom glanced at her from the front seat. "You okay, baby?" Tiana looked out the window at the setting sun, the sky blazing deep orange. "I'm good, Mama," she said. "Really good." Because today wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about humiliation or payback. It was about standing your ground, not with shouting or violence, but with the kind of quiet strength that demands respect without ever having to raise a fist. If there's one thing to remember from Tiana's story, it's this. You don't have to match disrespect with disrespect. Sometimes, the strongest move you can make is standing tall, speaking the truth, and letting the world see who you really are. And if you ever see someone being mistreated, whether they're wearing a uniform or not, don't look away. Speak up. Stand beside them. Because real change doesn't start with loud speeches. It starts with small moments of courage, just like this one. Thanks for listening to Tiana's story. If you believe in standing up for what's right, make sure you like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder today. See you in the next one.